Welcome to another episode of the Peak Potential Success Show. My name is Fong. I'm an entrepreneur, business strategist, real estate investor, speaker, and also a best-selling author. And every single day, I help others unlock potentials and guide them to succeed. Today on the show, we have another amazing individual. I actually met him on Clubhouse, and once I heard him speak, I was absolutely blown away. He has a very, very strong message. He has a very, very strong cause, but he's also so passionate in helping people. He's so passionate in what he does, and he is so grounded, and I couldn't wait to have him on my show, and I'm very, very honored to have him here today. He was a top sales representative in the medical device industry. He's also a financial advisor, giving lots of great financial advice to his clients. But aside from all of that, he's also very passionate in helping people. He's also very, very passionate in what he does, and he has been there for so many families, providing them hope, support, and also inspiration as they are dealing with life-altering challenges. He is the author of the book, The 20-Month Legend, and he is also a childhood cancer advocate. So please welcome the VP of HayesTough Foundation, Mr. Steve Tate.
Fong, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you very much for your time and being here. I just wanted to ask you, for people who don't really know what you do, I know you have all these great things, the charity foundations, all that kind of stuff, but what exactly do you do and how did you get to where you are?
You know, it's interesting. So I think just the backstory. So I played college football at the University of Utah. And prior to that, I actually grew up in the state of Utah. And so I kind of got some notoriety as I was playing high school football and had a lot of success there. And was, an All-American high school football player and ended up staying here locally at Utah. And so I think the public just followed me throughout my career in high school, and then it led to my football career in college. And part of that became was kind of the task of being a public figure, whether I liked it or not. And so, of course, after I got done playing and advancing in my career, I would jump on and do media presentations, sideline reporting, radio, TV, and I would dabble in that outside of just my typical career. And I formed some great relationships with the media. And then, of course, my life took kind of a tragic turn when one of my triplets, so we had 3 kids and we had triplets, which was in itself was just this crazy phenomenon story. And then, 9 months after we had the triplets, one of them was diagnosed with brain cancer. And so I think the platform kind of grew from this homegrown high school football player to, kind of where I'm at now and be an advocate for childhood cancer.
Wow. You went from being a star football player, and then what was that like? Going, okay, wait a minute, I may have to change career paths and go into sales. How did you make that decision?
It's funny. There was a big identity crisis. Huge. It was something. I mean, it's kind of what right? And people recognize you, and that's what you're known as. You've always been this football player, and then for that to be shut down, so I had an opportunity to try out for Tampa Bay, and do all that. At the time I had a son, so my son was 2, and my wife was expecting our second within like a few weeks of the draft and everything like that. And so, for me, kind of pursuing that NFL life was much different than your typical, collegiate athlete. I really had to focus on my family. And so when the opportunity came with Tampa Bay, there was no real contract and there was no money on the table. It was probably the time for me to decide, okay, let's move on and, close this chapter of my life and focus on a career. So I got into pharmaceutical sales, and I did that for a year. And, whether or not it was just the identity crisis I was going through, I hated it. I felt like there was more I needed to do in my life. And I think that just came with, the first year of really going out and being part of the workforce. And then I eventually went into medical advice and had really great, success doing that, and ultimately ended up here in this financial advising world. But yeah, I think the success I had in college certainly has paved the way for what I'm doing now.
Were you one of those people who had always in the back of your mind that football may not exactly be the path, and therefore I need to work on something else on the side as well to kind of build both things?
Yeah, I kind of prided myself, certainly when you play college football, and you're, I'll say I'm 6 foot, but 5'11" half, 23-year-old at the time, playing defensive back, 190 pounds. I knew that perhaps I was not going to be that my NFL career would, if it happened, would be short. So I knew that would not necessarily set me up for the rest of my life. So I always knew that, there was going to be something else I needed to do in this world. So, for me, I looked at that as I basically said, I'll take football wherever it takes me. And it was right then when I knew, I was fortunate. I started as a 4-year starter in college, started as a true freshman, had success. I was all conference at the state, at the University of Utah. And so I was a captain. I accomplished pretty much everything I probably set myself out to accomplish in college. And whether or not that led to the NFL, it really didn't. Oddly enough, it really didn't mean a heck of a lot for me. I did what I overcame a lot of people's probably expectations and met my own expectations along the way.
Well, that's awesome. Now, would you say that as an athlete, does that give you an advantage over other people in sales and in the financial realm with that mindset?
I think so. In the sales world, I remember, my first interview and had no business being in the position that I was right out of college, not having any experience. But I think ultimately, I had a story. I basically, I had a unique story outside of just, playing college football. I actually had to walk on at the University of Utah after I got home from an LDS mission, because I got home mid-year. And so they didn't have the scholarships available when I got home. So I was technically a walk-on. And when you're a walk-on, you're treated differently than scholarship players, even though I was, as good as the scholarship players. And so, going from a walk-on to captain and all conference, there's, you can do a lot of years in sales, but, I don't think those even add up to what I had to overcome of earning my teammates' respect, earning my coach's respect, performing under, pressure. And now it might not have been sales, the, typical sales, results, but it was results on the football field. And it was having to prove yourself to your teammates and your coaches. So I had that career experience, although it wasn't your typical, sales performance numbers. But so I think that helped. And then currently what I do now, absolutely, I was I look back and I had no business, my scholarship check when I was at Utah was like $760. My rent was $720. And I was married with a son. And so, we had to be smart with our finances. And I was able to work in the summers and save some money. And, with that, I saved and I invested so that eventually I could get out of, this, world of just living paycheck to paycheck. And it was just good habits that I formed. And I think ultimately that's helped me, as I advise my clients, my clients work hard for what they have and they want to preserve that. So I think it certainly reflects back on my time when I was a scholarship athlete trying to, budget $760 a month.
Working with so many different people in all walks of life, when you're dealing with their financial situations, what would you say is the most common mistake or most common challenge that most people would have?
Oh, that's a great question. Every situation is different. I'd say, if you look at my clients, I average, I manage 100 million, is what I have in my practice, about 260 clients or so. If you were to look at my clients, sure, I have some high net worth clients, but I think the biggest misconception of what I do, I think people look at a financial advisor or wealth manager as someone that manages wealthy people's money. And it's really not. I manage your blue collar, everyday person's money who have worked really hard, who have been very disciplined in their savings approach and their investing approach, so that when the time comes when they're in their mid 60s, they can retire and live the lifestyle they want to live throughout the rest of their life. Very seldom, we don't live in the fairy tale world where everyone inherits a bunch of money and can live happily ever after. I help everyday people stay disciplined in their investing so that one day they can retire. And I think that's the misconception a lot of the times is people think they have to have a lot of money immediately to start with their financial footprint. And that's not the case at all. I think it's early on, starting those discipline investing and saving strategies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very, very important because that's not really taught. That's not really taught in schools, and
No.
we're just thrown out into the world and go, okay, you can deal with your finances.
It is crazy. I know you like a lot of my clients will come in and they've even though they've been putting to a 401k, they really haven't been taught, okay, what's a bond? What's a stock?
Mm-hmm.
What's a 401k? What's a Roth? What's an IRA? I mean, it's basic and, basic finance. They don't teach in school, which is crazy. So, fortunately for myself, I've learned that, but, people don't have that background, that knowledge in that.
I think the only thing I remember about money back in my school days is how to write a check.
Yeah, exactly. Now look what it does for us. We have Venmo. It doesn't good anymore.
I think it was like in the math class or something like that. And all they do was say, okay, this is how you write a check. So from a very early stage, we were taught to give money away.
Yeah, that's exact opposite what you want, how to write a check.
Exactly. Now, for yourself as a financial advisor, you don't really fit that profile. Lots of people go, okay, financial advisor, they're usually this kind of image, right? But you're also a Instagram star.
Yeah.
You dance, you do so many different creative things. And you say you're going to be a comedian soon too, right?
Yeah, that's one that, if I have a second life, I'll come back and be the comedian. I'm not, I definitely don't have it this time around.
Mm-hmm. Well, my other question is, I got to see your hands.
Oh, right. The hand modeling. I mean, that's you got to see him in person, Fong. I mean, that's reality. Yeah, it's funny. I get that all the time. I think, people kind of put financial advisors almost on the same platform as accountants, kind of dry, boring. Mm-hmm. And I'm almost the opposite. I'm very outgoing. I form relationships really well. And, it's interesting when I got into this world, my dad was in this world and my dad's very analytical. My dad actually managed this practice for 20 years. And then ultimately I came in, I built my book. He decided he wanted to retire. So I bought him out as he retired. And we're two very different styles in how we go about with our practice and how we interact with our clients. My dad is very much an analytical thinker. And so for someone like yourself, engineer, sometimes he related to engineer types who wanted to see the numbers and the data and all that and build those portfolios and look at the beta and look at the alpha and really analyze. And my approach is very different. My approach is very much big picture and having discussions about, okay, what does this ultimately mean? Are we meeting our goals? And then, being a therapist, a financial therapist really is what I kind of view myself as, is, not making dumb decisions when everything else tells us you make that dumb decision. Okay, let's sit back and analyze why we shouldn't. And it's really, I feel like I manage emotions. And so I think it's unique. I think my clients like it. It's reflected in since my dad retired, and the growth of my practice has almost doubled since he's retired. So I was worried that perhaps it's different. It's not your typical financial advisor, but I think people find, I don't know. I think people find that people find that unique, and I think people are drawn to that. Not just trying to fit the mold of what they should be, but rather, hey, here's an individual who is outgoing, who's willing to put himself out there on Instagram and be unique, and not just this not this mold of who he should be.
Because I'm pretty sure there's not a lot of financial advisors out there who could also call themselves influencers on Instagram. So,
I know it's funny. The people, when I first was getting a lot of popularity on Instagram, I laughed because nobody knew what I did. And it was so, when people found out it was financial advising, it was just like they were floored. They couldn't believe that's what I did.
Now, when you put your first post up, do you remember that first post? And then also, what did you expect or kind of thought it would lead to?
It's funny, Fong. My first post, my son laughs at it because I got on Instagram still, and I think it was my last year of college, and I thought it was like Facebook. I had no intention of being a public figure or an influencer. So I think my first post was like something really it was like my daughter and her cousin eating a s'more. Like I had no idea what I was doing. And I could have gone and deleted those ones before, but ultimately that's never why I joined Instagram to begin with. Where it took off was sharing our story about our son. And then, I think people related to that. I think a lot of people are grieving or going through hard times. And so, what I never intended to be ultimately grew into, this figure who's trying to deal with grief, but live and trying to raise a family and dealing with all kinds of life issues and trying to juggle everything. And so I think that's how it grew. So my intention was never that to be that public figure. And in fact, there's times where I'm like, I'm going to go private for a while and just, not post for a while and just be me. And it's been refreshing to have that too.
Nice. Well, you kind of talked about it a little bit before right here. Share with us that story about like the inspiration and reason why you have the foundation, and then also why you wrote the book.
Yeah. So we had triplets, and our story was unique in that sense. We had three kids at the time. We were going for baby number 4 and got baby number 4 and 5 and 6. And what I thought was going to be the end of the world because I don't know how I'm going to juggle triplets ultimately became the biggest blessing and the funnest time of my life, despite, not having any sleep, but just raising these 3 babies with the older kids and my wife, the bonding that we had and really the satisfaction I got as a dad, and then ultimately getting the news that one of them was diagnosed with a brain tumor. It was like a splash of reality times 2. First, the news of triplets not too prior, and then all of a sudden the news that we got, one of them has cancer and it's a brain tumor. And I think at the time, sharing my story, it almost didn't make sense not to share it. I mean, at the time, people knew who I was. Again, I was as a kind of public figure already, and I just felt like we should share something, at least share the news. And when we shared the news, it was so, at times comforting knowing that there's people out there who were in our same boat, or there's people out there cheering us on or praying for us, whatever sort of religious background they were part of. I thought it really did lift us up. And, people started being part of our lows and our highs and, joining our journey. And it really, people from all over the world. And it made me realize what kind of impact, not me, but my son at the time, what kind of impact he was having. People would recognize, people would see his face and just be drawn to it and follow for that reason. And then, we got the devastating news that his cancer was terminal. And although we didn't think it was, we thought he was in remission. We had taken a trip to Disneyland in celebration of him being in remission. And, on the drive home from Disneyland, heading back to Utah, he started showing some symptoms and throwing up. And, we came back, we took him, got an MRI, and sure enough, it had come back and it was as aggressive as it's ever been. And sharing that news and, again, I could have hid and not shared it, but I think we found some solace in sharing our son, sharing our story, being lifted up. And then it turned to life after, losing your child. What do you go through and what kind of ups and downs do you experience? Well, part of that was, fortunately, from a financial standpoint, I had good, obviously this is my background, this is my wheelhouse. So I had prepared for a situation like this, and I had the means to provide for my family from a financial standpoint. So we're able to take a trip like Disneyland. But what if we didn't have that? What if we didn't have the finances to even cover his treatments? And we found ourselves thinking there are a lot of people in that boat that don't have the means to even pay for their child's care, let alone go to Disneyland. So we set up the HayesTough Foundation. And the HayesTough Foundation is focused on providing that, stepping in and providing that when insurance companies don't pay for all your meals at the hospital or transportation to and from the hospital, childcare for your kids. Insurance covers the care of your sick child. What about the other expenditures you experience? So HayesTough was formed with the intent of providing that, or providing that vacation for families that are experiencing, their children in a hospice that want to go experience the beach for the first time and last time in their lives. So, that was our intent. And my wife and I did it again, not for any economic gains, but more to carry on the legacy of our child. We do this 100% free, volunteer, and all the proceeds go to these families that are in need, that need this help. And when we formed it, we thought we could help a few families. We thought maybe one or two, and when we did, it just felt amazing. We were like, "This is it. This is Hayes' legacy." And then, 3 and 4 years later, we found ourselves, after looking back, we've raised over $1 million, just the two of us. Mm-hmm. So, in regards to the book, crazy. Never thought I'd be a writer. I mean, again, I got this inspiration. I got this feeling. Undoubtedly, my son, I was woken up. It was like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I got this impression that I needed to write a book. And so I couldn't get it. I couldn't shake it. I was like, come on, I don't want to write a book. I've been through enough. I'm not going to write a book. I don't have the time to write a book. But it was like, I was pushed, you have to write this book. And so I grabbed my phone, and I honestly just did 1 through 32 chapters of what I thought they would be. And my wife woke up and I said, "Hey, I sent you the outline of my book." And she's like, "Your book?" I was like, "I'm gonna write a book." She's like, "Yeah, I'd probably not tell anyone that for a little while." And I just started writing. Again, I was always gifted writer in school, but never thought I could write a book. I mean, I didn't have any experience writing a book. I was a good experience because I think I could BS my way through college with having to write it rather than a multiple choice test. But 4 weeks later, I wrote this book. It was done.
Wow.
Yeah. And I never thought it would, sure enough, literary agent reached out to me, and it was published within 3 months.
Awesome. I can kind of imagine that conversation. It's like, "Oh yeah, I sent you the outline of my book." And she goes, "Good morning to you too."
Right. Good night. Was that a dream that you had? Because no way.
Are you still dreaming? First of all, thank you very much for sharing that story and that experience. There's a lot of people out there who go through hard times, and they don't want to share their stories because they have to relive that over and over again. And I'm sure you've retold that story and that experience over and over again. How did you get into your mind that go, "You know what, I can get through this by reliving that experience all the time because I'm sharing it all the time"?
Yeah, I think that's part of the grieving process and everyone grieves differently. There are people that want to shut down, that want to close off that chapter. And for me, it almost helped not to close it off. It almost felt, you go through, like when you lose a child, you want it to be, you don't want him to be forgotten, him or her to be forgotten. Then that's the last thing you want, and you want them to be remembered. And I remember going, when you lose a son, people rally behind you, and then that rally stops about 3 months. The people 1 to 3 months, people are rallying, and they're bringing food, they're in your corner, and then their lives move on, and you're kind of sitting back saying, "My life hasn't moved on," and that's the reality, is we have to move forward, but we don't move on, and everyone else around you is kind of moving on. And so, I kind of felt like, well, no, we're not moving on. We're moving forward. And here I have a son who died of cancer. And I honestly feel like my wife and I have this platform through social media, and if we don't share our son's story, and then people will stop caring. And immediately when people stop caring, that's when change stops occurring. And if we want change, meaning change in funding for childhood cancer, if we want change in, really bringing light to, these kids, if we want change to occur, we have to keep sharing. And then if we stop sharing, or if we don't share, who else is going to do it? And that's really kind of, I felt inclined to do that. Now, there are times when, I want to shut down entirely. I mean, it hasn't been smooth sailing. I mean, you open yourself up to criticism, you're open to false accusations. Of course, people think we're doing it for self-gain. I mean, you open yourself up to criticism, but, no success in life hasn't come with criticism. And if you're being successful and having success, and you've got criticism, then you must be doing something right, because, you're big enough and you've done enough good to, I guess, to warrant that, and that's what happens. That's what happened in my football successes.
Mhm.
That's what happens in anyone's successes. There's always going to be, the other side of the equation. But ultimately, I think sharing our son's story, it's therapeutic, and it helps other people as well.
Now, when it comes to all those, like, these challenges of moving on, and also having these people giving this negative feedback sometimes, and that challenge and that adversity, what goes through your mind? How do you overcome those challenges and just kind of move forward?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's tough. I mean, to be honest, I think 2020 brought out some, just in every aspect of everyone's. I mean, 2020 was, and it's carried on to now. I think it, from a political standpoint, from maybe a health standpoint, I mean, it brought out all kinds of arguments and negativity and opinions and all that. And ultimately, my wife and I are advocates for our kids. And whether that means we were advocates for them going back to school, and advocates for my older son, who is, having has some mental, dealing with anxiety from the effects of losing his little brother. And we've become advocates of that. And we receive negative criticism all for things that we do. We sold masks, and people thought we were, people accused us of benefiting from COVID by selling masks. And it was like, are you right? I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
And it hurts at times. It does. It hurts. And I think my wife and I have gotten to the point, when you lose a child, you almost get calloused. You almost become really calloused and be like, I don't care what people think anymore. Because we've been through literally the worst thing possible. We've experienced it. So, someone's opinion or accusation, whatever, we've learned to let it slide off our back. And I think there's some authenticity in that. I think people see that and say, so these guys are real, and they don't let anything like that affect them. They're going to continue to do good despite perhaps having setbacks.
Now, if there's anybody out there right now that is experiencing something similar to that, that's really, really hurting them, what would you say from the person who's trying to deal with it? What's the best way or first step for them to move forward? And then also for others around them, what would be the best way for them to help?
That's a great question. One of the things I learned when my son Hayes, when he was diagnosed, was, so I'm a planner. I'm a planner. I plan. So that means I've got to look forward, and I oftentimes have to look back, but I very much have to look forward and plan for what lies ahead. And my wife's more fly by the seat of her pants. We need to focus on now. And I think we're a good balance. When Hayes was diagnosed, I Googled his type of cancer one time, and that was all I needed, because I almost fainted from what came up, and it took all sense of hope from me. And the only thing you have going for you in life when you're dealing with a son who has cancer with a prognosis that's not great is hope. And if that hope is taken from you, it takes months, years to build up that hope, but it can be taken like that. So I learned very early on not to look forward. I had to learn to stop looking forward and stop looking backward. I couldn't look back at the diagnosis, and I couldn't look at the prognosis. I had to live in the now. And I think that's helped me in my everyday life. And I think that's, at times when you see me on, one of my posts, you have to learn to live in the now and enjoy the now. And even if that now is, you feel like this now is hell and a nightmare, get through that, and then get through the next day. And then if you keep getting through those days, eventually, that it gets brighter and the outlook gets better. And if you ever find yourself thinking, there's nothing, this is it, this is, the despair is too much, I challenge people to find somebody in the world or somebody around them that has it worse off, because there's always someone that has it worse off. There's always someone that has it worse off, even though you might not think that. that's what's been crazy about the foundation, is we continue to help these families who have it way worse off than what we have it, or that what we went through. And that helps us cleanse ourselves. That helps us lift ourselves up every morning, get out of bed. There's always someone around you that has it worse off. And I've always said, the minute you start feeling sorry for yourself, find someone that has it worse off and help that person. And I could tell you that's the best medicine ever. I tell my kids that when they're having a bad day, and go to that lunchroom and find that kid who's sitting alone and go sit with them. And I guarantee you, your life's going to be better because of it. And your challenges are going to seem small, and you made this person's life even better for it. And that's ultimately, that's humanity. And, when we lose sight of that, and we have lost sight of that as a nation, as a world, we tend to lose sight of that, especially the last 2 years. But, the moment we focus on humanity again, that's when you get, the cleansing and the cure begins.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was very, very powerful. And I absolutely love that part where you go help somebody else. Once you help somebody else, you help yourself at the same time. And we don't get enough of that. And you alluded to the fact that right now, lots of people are missing that part, because I believe social media comes into play with that. Where people hide behind a screen name or hide behind an account name, and they don't feel the consequence on putting all this hate out there and all that kind of stuff. Now, you're a person who is very, very active on Instagram. How do you try and kind of fight that?
I think it's good at times to. I think it's good at times to stop, reflect on why you're putting it out there, or why you're on it to begin with. And I had to do that. I think 2020 was a reset for me and my family. I mean, I went private for almost a year just because it was like, you know what? I don't want to, I think I never want, first off, when you said influencer, I never wanted, I don't, that's not something I went and signed up for. I didn't put I don't put on my resumes. It's just something that came through sharing our story. So I never wanted to feel inauthentic. And I think 2020 just at times it was crazy. I found myself always fearing to be inauthentic. So I kind of retracted a little bit and I didn't post as much. And then I kind of realized that don't do social media for someone else. If you find yourself thinking you have to post for somebody else, then you're doing it all wrong. And that's not healthy. Post for yourself. Don't post for others. Post for yourself. If you feel good at, I think that's what's hard is, again, people want to put out this, I don't know if it's people want to be influencers or want to be famous, whatever. Again, I think it's time to sit back and reflect, okay, ultimately, what does this all mean? Am I doing it for myself, or am I doing it for others? And I think the more you do it for yourself, the more authentic you become. And then, people are drawn to authenticity. That's where people have been drawn to us, my wife, is that we don't, we're not your typical influencers. We don't try to be, we're just living our lives. We're sharing our lows and our highs and being authentic. And if I find myself at times being inauthentic, I do have to take a step back and say, okay, why am I doing this? And then I have to, again, realize this is for me and my family, and those that don't want to follow along, I could care less. This is, you choose to follow me, not vice versa.
Right. No. Also, if people follow you on Instagram, they can tell that you're very, very involved with your family. You showcase a lot of great things. You're a husband, you're a father, you're a very successful person when it comes to the financial industry. You also have this foundation. The big question is balance. How do you balance all that stuff in the air and still be successful in all those areas?
It's hard. It's tough to juggle. I think, again, first and foremost, the thing that doesn't come second in my life is my family. That's the first and foremost. So, ultimately my family, my kids, they're my everything. And I will sacrifice additional income or money so that I can be with my kids in the now. And whether or not I think I knew that prior to even my son getting diagnosed. I just, you're only a father once, you don't get a second shot at it. And I always felt like I could live off of, when I was making nothing, when I was making $760 with a scholarship check, I was happy and I could live off it. I don't know how I did it, but I could do it. And so, when I started, when I started making more money and having more successes in my life, none of that necessarily mattered. It helped me. It allowed me to be more with my family. It allowed me to be at home with my family more, or it cherish, memories with my family more. So, ultimately, I think that was the main focus is never give up your family time. And if you can find time for that family, ultimately having them be a part of like the foundation, that's helped us. So, the foundation has been able to sustain itself and grow with the help of our family. Our family, we do it together. And so that's family time. And then my career, of course, and I try to juggle that. And, but I think the other two are related, the HayesTough Foundation, the family, and it's brought our family closer. It's created selflessness for my kids. And so, I think those have been almost in essence, one of the same.
Now, you've done so many different things in your life. You've done so many different, things such as like athlete, finances, charity, foundations, all that kind of stuff. And you had people kind of guide you along throughout that process. What would you say is the most important and most impactful advice that somebody else has given you?
Ooh, I've had some great mentors. I would say I don't necessarily have a piece of advice, but I experienced when I experienced a time, like, for me, I was always a good leader. I was always a really good athlete. Those things came naturally to me. Then when I got to the University of Utah, I had a coach, Urban Meyer, and Urban Meyer is a psychological genius. When people ask me, how is Urban Meyer, he's a psychological genius. He knows how to motivate individuals, not a team, individuals. And if you can motivate individuals and have them succeed, then of course the team's going to have success. And so Urban Meyer, he approached every individual on the team differently. And he knew what type of motivation each player could handle and which players could not handle. And for me, I learned early on that Urban Meyer knew my motivation was to prove people wrong. But I got to Utah, and I looked in front of me, and there were guys way more athletic, faster, stronger, you name it. And I just was looking around like, how am I going to get on the field? Like, how am I going to do this? And, Urban, at one point I wanted to quit. And Urban, even Urban at times was playing, he's motivating me by kind of acting like he didn't know who I was or didn't know my position. And I mean, there was one time he stopped practice and he asked, middle of practice, blew the whistle. I had messed up a play or something. He says, who's your coach? What position are you? Like, what's your name? He asked me my name, my position, coach. And it was the lowest point of my athletic life, for sure. Being around your peers, being around your friends. I mean, that's humiliating. Mm-hmm. And I remember going home and thinking, I want to quit. I hate this guy. I want to quit. And not quitting and continuing going. And then it went from 3 months later, Urban Meyer, and we had our spring annual red and white scrimmage. And the only person he singled out in the whole scrimmage, he told me to stand up. And because I had, I think, an interception. And anyways, it was that gratification that I was searching for. And that it was the same, that was how he was motivated. And it was kind of one of this full circle where he knew exactly what he was doing at the time. And this is what I needed. And I think that's where that's something in my life that's totally changed. It's changed how I motivate my kids. It's changed how I do my own personal motivation and meet my goals is, ultimately proving people wrong or perhaps setting higher goals for yourself and challenging yourself and knowing that, you could fall flat on your face, but ultimately, if you don't have those high goals. And so I think that was probably the moment in my life where I think I could accomplish anything. Honestly, I think that was the moment in my life. Was like, I could do anything at this point. Like, I'll motivate myself however I have to. I've seen the lows and I know what it takes to get to the highs.
Very, very powerful stuff. Now, if you were on the world stage and we want to hear the most important advice that Steve Tate has for everybody in the world, what's that one message that you want to spread to everybody?
Oh man, I'll say this. What came to us as we were sharing our journey was the reality of how much good there is in this world. And prior to 2020, and when we were sharing our story, I kept telling people there's so much better in this world than there is bad. There's so much more good in this world than there is bad. Yet we're surrounded by everything bad, fearful, sad, scary, you name it. And that's how, that's unfortunately, that's how people get reactions. That's how politicians get voted in, is creating fear, or, you name it. That's just how people are. That's how people are motivated to create, as I mentioned, to create change, emotions. And politicians do it, companies do it. And I want to take a step back. I want people to take a step back and say, okay, how much of that is really us being, trained to believe that versus looking around and seeing how much good there is in the world. And so I think for me, I always want to be a token of good, of creating good, of being part of the good. I mean, that was one of my things, was a part of our, one of our focus and foundation is being part of the good, be part of the good. And whether that is, whether it's very simple, it's forgetting about yourself and putting hope back in humanity. And there's a lot of it. But if you kept, if you're one that, just solely pays attention to the news and gets that, and, you're going to have probably a sense that this world is really bad. But I really believe there's a lot more good in this world than there is bad.
That's a very, very strong message and very, very inspirational. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
I got 5 quick questions, rapid fire. Give me the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay, love it.
Okay, you're driving a very old car, so all you have is a tape deck, okay?
Okay.
You need to preface that. And it's a long road trip. What's that one song that you don't mind playing over and over and over again because it's just stuck?
Okay, that's a good one. I'm going to go with Better Man by Pearl Jam.
Awesome. Hollywood calls you and they're saying, you know what, Steve, we need to do a biopic on you. We'll have you as the leading man, of course, because you're Steve Tate. But who would you cast as your best friend? Anybody you want.
Oh, okay. My best friend, Vince Vaughn.
Great. So Vince Vaughn calls and says, we need to get to know each other before I play your best friend. So he shows up at your door and you need to serve him dinner. So what's that special Steve Tate entree that you could provide serve him?
Oh man. Okay, let's see. With Vince Vaughn, I'm gonna go with something spice, something sriracha. We gotta have some sriracha on it. So probably either some buffalo sriracha wings. Yeah, I'd probably say something like that. Yeah, some wings. But I'm a sissy when it comes to wings. I actually go boneless. So it's not. I'm not even a true man at this point.
All right. You show that you can dance. I'm pretty sure you could sing too.
No, that's the one thing I cannot do. I am tone deaf as it gets.
Okay. So is there another hidden talent that many people don't actually know that you're willing to share?
Interior design.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, like HGTV, I'm a sucker. Chip and Johanna Gaines, like that is I love that. So maybe that's my hidden talent. But singing, no, in fact, my 7th grade teacher, this is a true story. 7th grade teacher There's probably a class of 40 kids, and we were all singing, and I could tell she was searching for something, for that one tune that was off. And immediately she looked at me and told me to stop singing. She's like, Steve, you are as tone deaf as it gets. I want you to mouth the words from now on, because you're ruining it for the rest of us.
That's some motivation right there, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I just thought of another one, because I know you said you love The Bachelor.
Yeah.
So if it's a reverse role and you were one of the contestants, do you think you can win?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know if this is fortunately or unfortunately. I'll say unfortunately, I think I could. And my wife laughs too. She says, if we were not married, this is your wheelhouse. Like, you're made for Bachelor. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but yeah, I think I could.
Awesome. And my last question is, what is success like? But before you answer that, give me a number between 1 to 5.
Let's go number 1.
Number 1. So how is success like Botox?
Oh, how is success like Botox? You never get full of it. That fits, right? You're never full. I think the challenging part about success is I don't know if that's just my personality. I don't know if I ever feel like I'm successful. Maybe it's just because I think you're always worried about being successful, even if others view you as successful. I think that's the challenging part is, am I successful, and what does success mean for other people? And I think you have to figure that out for yourself too. What does success mean for you? And I guess it doesn't matter what the outworld definition of success is. Do you feel successful? I do. As a dad, do I have other areas of my life that I probably need to work on? Absolutely. But I think success comes in all formats, and I don't think you're ever like, you know what, that was good, I'm successful now, I'm done. I think you can never get full of it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Great answer. And thank you very much for all your answers and your stories and your inspiration. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Fong. It's been fun. Appreciate it.
Do you have any last words? And also, how do people help out with the HayesTough Foundation? And also, how do they get your book?
Yeah. You can go to HayesTough.org, whether it's donations, whether it's just kind of researching on what we do and how to get involved in your own community. HayesTough.org is a great place to start. You can find myself at Tate28 on Instagram. I'm on Twitter as well. And then my book, fortunately, my book is available Barnes & Noble, Simon & Schuster. You can get it online on Amazon as well. It's available in audio format too. So of course, those things always go back to the foundation. The proceeds of the book never go for me. It goes to the foundation for people that are battling childhood cancer.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. So for everybody, make sure you check out the book and also look into the foundation. It's a great cause, and I'm sure that there's something there for you to put your efforts and also some monetary donations into. So once again, thank you very much. Oh, check out his Instagram. Great stuff. Lots of fun. And you get to see him dance now and then. So once again, thank you very much. He is Steve Tate. My name is Fong. Until next time. Today is the day to unlock your peak potential. We'll see you later.